Last week, in fact, we were trying to share something on humanistic psychotherapy and psychology, and I have mixed, I believe, some basic points and explained the reason why we wanted to share ideas of humanistic psychology and psychotherapy. But unfortunately, these things were not recorded. Today we have some recording, but I believe that it is not the ideal one because we don't have the proper camera. Anyway, we'll make an attempt. And as I said last week, or perhaps the week before, I think, these discussions on humanistic psychotherapy and psychology are, in a sense, quite tentative. They are not very organized. They are things that I recollected from my thinking, reading as a young undergraduate, and of course, very recently I had to take out these things for the sake of some students, or perhaps for the sake of sharing the Dhamma with you on such occasions. So these are, I must say, random thoughts. And however, I think that they deserve to be shared, and I hope that they will inspire you to think more deeply about what it means to be a human being, what it means to be a Buddhist. These are the fundamentally important question for us. If we don't inquire into this, we will never have true satisfaction as human being or as Buddhist. We don't know why we become Buddhist. We don't know why we spend Sundays, why we spend so much time at the center, or doing this activity, that activities. We're just swept along by various forces, you can say social forces, group forces, without our own awareness. That is not being a true human being. So I think every now and then, I think we should pause and ponder over certain things, even if there are very random thoughts, but they are worth for us to pause every now and then, sit down and think about ourselves, where we are going, what we are doing, where we should be heading towards. I have explained last week why these humanistic psychologists and psychotherapists should be of special interest to us. I'm not interested in, presenting Buddhism from the perspective of any modern discipline in themselves. That is not really my interest. But there are certain modern, you can say, thought systems which are closely related to the Buddha's teaching. And one certainly is what we call humanistic psychology and psychotherapy. As the name suggests, these are thought systems, or this is a thought system that is centered around the human being. And Buddhism, the Buddha's Dharma, is centered around the human situation. The Buddha said he has only one purpose in all his teachings throughout his 45 or 49 years of teaching, and that is the explanation of the human predicament of what is called dukkha, and the way out of dukkha, the way to transcend dukkha. So this is dukkha of man. This is the belief that man alone man owns dukkha. And dukkha is, you can say, the human predicament. That there is an inherent sense of dissatisfaction due to the inherent fact of unsatisfactoriness of all conditioned existence. And that unsatisfactoriness is what I'm trying to use to translate the word dukkha. This is a predicament that as human beings we cannot escape. But the only thing is that most of us are not aware of it. We don't have awareness of it. We don't know where we are. And if we do not know where we are, we don't know where we can go. We do not know our potentiality. When we don't know our potentiality, we don't know our basic problem, we don't understand humanity. So I have often said that humanity is yet to be achieved. And this is the path of Buddhahood. This is the Dharma. So, from this perspective, Buddhism is definitely a humanistic religion, and Eric Fromm has very eloquently made that point. And he singled out Buddhism as the best exemplification of what he called humanistic, non-authoritarian religion. And in different places, he has cited some important doctrinal views of the Buddha and also from his life to illustrate the importance of unfolding man's potential. And he believes that the Buddhist path, although he doesn't call himself Buddhist, he has never done that. Most of the people, they don't do that. But what he says, and what some other humanistic psychologists, psychoanalysts says, are really quite compatible with Buddhism. But let us remind ourselves not to be over-enthusiastic. We cannot say that Buddhism is nothing but just humanistic philosophy or humanistic psychology. I do not mean that. For me, Buddhism is much, much more than any modern thought system, including humanistic psychology or psychotherapy that we are discussing about. Okay, as to humanistic psychology and psychotherapy, I have singled out a few thinkers, and one is Carl Rogers. He is believed to be the effective founder of humanistic psychology, and some people put him together with Eric Fromm as being the founders of this branch of psychology, because they also believe that the purpose of psychology, and for that matter the purpose of any human thought system, is to serve man's purpose. And he and other humanistic psychologists also believe, like the Buddhists, that the solutions of human problems can only be solved by humans themselves, not from an outside agent. So in all these respects, their approach aligns with Buddhism. So I often characterize Buddhism as the path of the unfoldment of human potential. In that way, perhaps I'm influenced by the expression of these speakers. So today, we just simply, I just simply want to share some of the sayings of Rogers and try to understand what he means, or what he say, what his statements mean to us as Buddhists. Okay, but the criteria, always remember, is not to fit Buddhism, not to fit the Buddha's teaching in any modern thought system, including this one. should be it should be the other way around. We to see how their teachings can be understood meaningfully from the point of view of the Buddha's teaching. The Buddha's teaching must always be the basis. If we do not lose sight of that principle, then I think we are safe in this kind of comparative investigation. Okay, so to begin with, I want to read a couple of passages taken from his writings. He has a very well-known book. One of the books that I read as a young man was on being a human. I have forgotten much of it, but the basic ideas are still in my mind. So these days I've just stuck out a few things, and I don't really have time to put them into a systematic fashion. One of the important things he talks about is called self-actualization. You can see projected there, called self-actualization. Now this concept came to be further emphasized and you can say amplified by Abraham Maslow also in his system, and we hope to share some of his ideas. So these are the three thinkers that they are inspiring to me. There are many others, especially history. Roger is one, Eric Fromm is another one, and Abraham Maslow. It appears that Roger was most likely the first person to talk about the concept of self-actualization. Let's read one of his passages that he wrote in 1951. These things, I think many of these things you can find online. I have copied and pasted these, but there are also books. We also have their books. You can read. His book is very readable, and Eric Fromm book also especially. And even Maslow. Eric Fromm is his English is very flowing and readable, very powerfully inspiring. So not complicated sentences, but very challenging. These are my impressions even as a young man. Now here is what Roger has to say about self-actualization. Let's read it. He says, the organism has the basic tendency and striving to actualize, maintain, and enhance the experiencing organism. Think about it, what it means to you, especially what it means to you as Buddhist. He talks about the basic tendency in a living being, an organism. And that the basic tendency means that it is fundamental to an existent being. In Buddhism we say a sentient being. And it is similar to what Eric Fromm says with regard to the need for religion or religiosity. And he says that the need for religion is rooted in man's very existence itself. That is to say, if you are a living being, if you are an organism, you cannot help, because it is basic to you. You cannot escape it. It is a basic nature to want to actualize, to want to enhance your experience as a living being, to want to unfold your potential as a human being to the highest. You can even say that from the Buddhist point of view, this is similar to saying that for a Buddhist, there is an innate tendency to respond to dukkha, to transcend dukkha, and to seek happiness in a true sense. Even to say that we have a basic tendency to want to be Buddha, or to have the Buddha nature within us. We cannot have want to be Buddha in that sense. To want to be Buddha is to want to have our potential unfolded to the highest degree, to perfection. That's what a Buddha means. Now that tendency to actualize the human potential can be understood, therefore, as the tendency to develop into Buddhahood. That's a state when we can truly feel happy. We can truly go beyond unsatisfactoriness, dukkha. So for Rogers, for Eric Fromm, for Maslow, and for many other humanistic psychologists and psychotherapists, this is innate to all of us. In fact, not only to human beings, in Buddhism we say to all sentient beings, and here Roger talks about organism. Any organism has this basic tendency to want to actualize, to maintain, to enhance the experiencing organization. Eric Fromm in one place says that to be alive, to exist at all, is to actually actualize our potentiality. So this is one fundamental point of human psychotherapy. There are so many teachings of human psychotherapy and or psychology and counseling these days. There are many courses available to you people. I don't know what they are teaching about, but I firmly believe that if we want to learn something meaningfully, the first thing is for Buddhists to understand Buddhism properly first. And we will try to be pretentious and to be teachers when we ourselves have not grasped the basic humanistic nature of the Buddha's teaching. Then we are distorting the Buddha's teaching, and it's harmful to those who pretend to teach and those who want to learn. They're all confused. Maybe their intention is good, and if so, I rejoice in the intention, but I think we have to be very important. So before we discuss all this modern system of humanistic psychology, the first thing is that we ourselves must probably grasp the Buddha's teaching about human nature, human need, the Dhamma. Now on this about actualizing the human potential, let me continue to share with you another passage of Rogers. He talks about the idea of creativity. Now that's also very important. I have emphasized the Buddha's teaching as creative education. And by that I mean it is a system that helps us to unfold our potential to higher and higher degrees, and to bring us to the newer, more profound levels of experience of the human being, experiences the human being is capable of, to bring us into new domains of our experiences at higher level. This is to be creative. And in that sense, the Buddha is an exemplification of a truly creative individual. He is the true individual. He is the perfected individual. He is truly creative. So when we have taken him as the highest standard, high criteria, then we know what it means to want to be creative, to want to actualize ourselves. We look at the Buddha, look at what he teaches, look at his example, and we move upwards. That is the creative process. So these human psychotherapies, here I'm talking about Rogers, talks also about the important concept of being creative, the concept of creativity. And they are aware that it is very difficult to give a definition of creativity. And I have also not attempted to do so, and I have talked about it very generally just now. It is as difficult to define creativity, in definite terms. Sometimes it's, to be truly creative, by definition, we should not confine ourselves to a rigid definition, if you like. Maybe I'm playing with words, but what I'm trying to say is that, important concepts are not just mere concepts in Buddhism. They are powers. These words are power. In that sense, they are true mantra in a sense. And if we can feel them, if we can have them in our light and fresh, then these words are powers, are fuels, the activators, the uplifters, these concepts also. So, but if we try to, the moment we try to confine them to very mechanistic, rigid definitions, then we are restricted. We are denied their power to help us to be uplifted. So it's just like spirituality. That's another word, another concept. You can talk about it in various ways, but it's difficult to give perhaps you shouldn't even give a rigid definition of what it means to be spiritual. So the best thing is to feel, to experience, to live those concepts. And but of course we cannot do this arbitrarily. For Buddhists, then the key point is to always have the Buddha in your mind. What he says, how he lives, how he transforms himself, how he struggled, how he succeeded, his whole path. That is his Dharma. The Dharma expressed in his words as well as in the example. That should be our key standard, like key criteria. So without giving a rigid definition, by feeling the Buddha, by, if you like, discerning the Buddha within you, then you can become truly creative. You can become truly spiritual without having to rigidly define these terms. Anyway, sometimes also even Rogers and others try to give some definition, and here is one, at least a description about, not definition here, description about creativity. Let's read it first. The mainspring of creativity appears with the same tendency which we discover so deeply as the curative force in psychotherapy. Man's tendency to actualize himself. You see, he linked up the idea of creativity with actualization. You can say that to be creative is to actualize yourself, or when you actualize yourself, you are being creative. So the man's tendency to actualize himself to become his potentialities. By this I mean the directional trend which is evident in all organic and human life. Evident in all, that is without exception, organic and human life. The urge to expand, extend, develop, mature. So this directional tendency, the tendency to express and activate all the capacities of the human organism to the extent that such activation enhances the organism or the self. So the tendency to actualize then is basic, as he said earlier, in the earlier discussion we have seen, in all human lives. And it is an urge, it's not just a thought, it's just not an idea. It's a fundamental urge with us to want to be better, to come to higher levels, to want to develop, to want to mature. Or we might even add as Buddhists, to want to be Buddha, to come to the level of Buddhahood. So this whole process is a process of creativity. So this is an important concept of Roger of self-actualization. As I said, it came to be developed and talked much about by Maslow and others. To actualize oneself, to be creative, requires certain conditions. And Roger sometimes talks about some of these conditions. And one he underscores is openness. The first thing is openness. Let's read this, another passage. Certain experiences are prevented from coming into awareness except in distorted fashion. How in distorted fashion? Let's read on. In a person who is open to experience, each stimulus is freely relayed through the nervous system without being distorted by any process of defensiveness. It means the ability to receive much conflicting information without forcing closure on the situation. The more the individual has available to himself a sensitive awareness of all phases of the experience, the more sure we can be that his creativity will be personally and socially constructive. So, one important condition, one of the first conditions to be meaningfully, to be truly creative, and to be able to actualize the human potential that is within all of us, is to be open. And to be open, firstly, requires awareness. Otherwise, to be open to what? How to be open? That is why sometimes he says that it's a paradox in a way to him that he feels that he can truly change only when he can truly accept himself. And we saw that last week. You must first be aware of, in Buddhism, this is mindfulness. And we can say that according to the Buddha's path, the first step is mindfulness, sati. If you look at the 7 factors of enlightenment, this is always the first step. It's a growing point of the process of higher evolution. Without mindfulness, without awareness, you cannot even start. Awareness of what? I have just said at the beginning, awareness first of your situation, where you are, what you are. And that means also to be honest to yourself, to accept yourself. And not, therefore, to have any defensiveness. Now this is the problem of modern men. Most of us live in mask, M-A-S-K. And most people are defensive because the more educated they are, they feel that they have to defend themselves, to present themselves to others, in a nice way, and when things are pointed out to them, they don't accept. Automatically, they will defend first. They think they are smart, they have to be like that to survive in a so-called learned, sophisticated society. But these are some of the most seriously damaging effect of Western culture, or at least the negative part of Western culture. I think there are wonderful things in Western culture too. Let me every now and then remind you of that. But one of the most damaging effect in the process of colonization, in the process of our so-called learning, reading English book, and when you come from a village, you didn't know English, and then you went to a society, you learn English, you feel you are higher, you are more intelligent, you are more informed, you talk like a Western person, you talk like an English person, you use their term, you quote their books. Actually, sometimes you are seriously harmed and damaged in that process. And you learn to defend yourself. You see, you learn to put on mask in a way that are required by that kind of Western system. So the first thing is to be open, to do away with defensiveness. If you realize you are like this, you say, yes, I'm like this. In a way, it's okay that I'm like this, but if I have some goal, let me see how I can transform myself. And that's what confession of what is. That's what repentance is in Buddhism. That is why in many Buddhist ceremonies, the first step is confession. And confession means awareness of yourself. And do away all your defensiveness. Accept yourself as you are. Not to have a rosy, idealized picture of yourself. I'm good, I'm not like that. Others are like that, And when you are told something, when something people try to help